between one of these, a knife, and good quality sandpaper or sanding sponges, you're pretty much set for your preparation in any modeling. Hello, this is BJ from Hearns Hobbies, and today I'm going to be looking at the GodHand Make Edge File. Now, you can see there, really nice packaging. This particular file is this broad part here. Now, files are not a new thing. There's a lot of different types of files around, but this particular one is different in that it's a sheet of stainless steel, so you don't have to worry so much about, I guess, oiling. And really, you don't want to oil a file because that's the surface that you want to put onto your model, and you don't want oil going everywhere, particularly if you're going to paint it afterwards. The other thing is it's going to make sure there's no corrosion, which is really important because sometimes when you leave mild steel files around, they just rust up and they're not very nice to work with. So made of stainless steel, it's going to keep a really nice clean surface for you to use for the future to come. Now let's just look at the overhead. So there you go, you can see the packaging there. That's the actual file there, and you can see how broad it is because small modeling files are normally very thin, which is great if you're just using it for really fine touch-ups, but most of the time you want something that's doing a nice flat edge for you, and that's what they've got here. So rather than using sandpaper on a firm board or such, you've got a very long life file, which is like a medium grit sandpaper to use, and it works very quickly because of the amount of material it can remove. Okay, so there's the packaging there. A little bit of an explanation on the back there. Okay, so got one here that we'll be using. As you can see, it fits in your hand quite nicely. It's very thin. Okay, it's probably about 2 mil thick. Got the GodHand stamp on the back. And you can see from the finish as I try to move it through its reflections, you can see how you do get a little bit of reflection through it, which means it is a very, very fine cut. And it's a multi-cut. You can just see the etching in it. Okay, so it's straight across here and there's a diagonal cut as well. All right, so how do you use it? Well, you can actually just place it on a surface and just sand things on it. Now I have this particular item here, which might give it a go. Now, you may just be able to see that very small nub on the side there. Now, nubs are usually found in places where you do have quite a bit of access and it's going to be a flat spot. Okay, so if we just use a knife to trim that, there's a chance that we may dig into it and actually make a channel, which we don't. Now, if we use a flat file, this is going to ensure that everywhere along here is going to be totally flat. Now, I know it's going to be hard to see, but you will see the nub just there. Now, if we just file it like so, now I should note that the edge of the file has no filing teeth on it, so that can actually go up against the edge. You can see how I press that up against there without any danger of that actually removing any material. Okay, so if we just follow this like so. Okay, that's practically removed already. Okay, just clean it up. And if I spin it around, you can see the material that's moved. Okay, so that's a white plastic. And then along here, you see that the nub is totally removed. And the finish itself is reasonably smooth. Now we can clean that up with some finer sandpaper, but you can barely see it, but it is a coarser surface. Okay, you can feel it definitely as you rub your finger across it. And as I look at the reflection, I don't know if I can pick it up for you there, you'll see the parts that are really reflective. They're the original parts of plastic. And it shows how irregular that curve is. Now what you will find that is sometimes, or actually a lot of the time, injection mold kits do shrink because the plastic is very hot and injected, and as it gets pulled out, it will shrink and it can deform. So to get the perfect edges, it will be necessary to sort of sand that all the way along. You also find that they may not be perfect because the mold had to be designed a particular way for the part to come out cleanly. Okay, so as we do this, quite quickly remove material and we'll find if there's any sink marks. And the sink marks will show up as really shiny parts in the center of the piece. So you can see a little bit of shine across here. Okay, so just using this tool very quickly, you know that this needs a touch of putty, it doesn't need it very much. So just a little bit of putty applied across the surfaces, let it dry, and then you can sand it back with this and it'll be perfectly smooth. Okay, so that's the edging file in use there, removing nubs. Now what else was I going to do? Okay, so I've got another piece here. This makes more sense with a totally straight piece. Now you've got a nub here and nubs on the ends. So if we cut these off, now I'm deliberately leaving massive nubs on it, just for demonstration purposes. Okay, so you can't miss those nubs. I mean, there's a massive nub there, and in the center there. So all you need to do is you trim them off as close as you can with your second cut, if you're using really sharp cutters. Okay, you still got really fine nubs. Try and move it in the reflection, you may be able to see. And then all we do is with your edging file, you can either leave it like so and just rub it across like this. Okay, by putting it on a flat surface, you guarantee that you're only concentrating on your plastic piece and you make sure that the sanding surface is totally smooth. Alternatively, you can hold onto the file and work with it like this. Okay, the issue with working with it like this is you can give this sort of curving action like this, and it can round off the edges. Okay, alternatively, you can also just rotate it like this as well, in a sort of orbital motion. And because of the way this has been cut, it doesn't really matter which direction you hold it, it's going to be removing the material the same way and gently. Okay, so as we cut it back, just use your finger to go across here. And quite often if you put your fingernail across here, your fingernail is not going to mark the plastic, but it will pick up on any irregularity, and that's already smooth. Okay, that's done. All right, and then we've got on this side, we've got the two nubs. There's one this side and one this side, and you'll be able to do them at the same time. Okay, so I still feel a bit there. And what this is going to do is this is going to ensure that that whole side is going to be totally flat, and hence why it's called an edging file. It's going to make a very flat edge. Okay, that's clean and that's clean. Okay, so that's going to be flat all the way across here. Quite often, this edge here, where it's touching the side of the edge of the mold, is going to be a slight lip, but that's all been cleaned up. And from moving it in the light, I can see that this part here on the ends is still shiny, which means it's totally not flat yet. So if we wanted that totally flat, we'll just keep sanding that away, removing a bit more material through the center until we get to those ends. And that's closer, and that's closer. But we can continue along, but at the moment, this whole edge is perfectly flat. You can see that. And then you see all this, particularly here. It's fairly anti-clog. You can feel quite confident just brushing this off, or just putting in a little bit of water and drying it off immediately. So even though it's stainless steel, you have to understand that stainless steel can still rust if it's got standing water on it. So it's just the way that stainless steel, with its blend of materials, it resists standing water, like slight coats of standing water, but if there's large standing water on it, over time it will still rust. Okay, so if you're going to wash it quickly and then dry it off, just like you would with a very high quality kitchen knife. So there you go. That is the edging file from GodHand. And because it's so flat, if need be, you can use this like a ruler if you had to. It's very straight edged. You can use it for checking how straight items are. can see there. And then being a perfectly rigid, solid, flat surface, it's going to give you absolutely perfect flat edges, and then you can do very controlled curves as well, as you can see from these corners, right? Just like this, as you would with a normal file as well. There you go. Very nice to use, and I think it'll be handy in anyone's toolbox. One of these, because quite often it's cleaning up of parts, which is very time consuming. So between one of these, a knife, and good quality sandpaper or sanding sponges, you're pretty much set for your preparation in any modeling. Okay, so there you go. That is the GodHand edging file. Very compact. It is really broad, as you can see. Really handy for sure. There you go.